Welcome everybody. How are you doing today? It's so very nice to have you here. And today I wanted to speak a little bit about our upcoming November intensive. And the theme for this intensive is removing obstacles to awakening. Nervous system, surrender and trust. You know, that's such a powerful statement, removing obstacles to awakening. And it will be interesting to see what the obstacles really are. You know, because so much of the time there are people that, or many people that believe that awakening is not even possible in this lifetime, which of course is not true. There are also people that believe that awakening can't happen to them, which of course is not true either. You know, as a matter of fact, Papaji used to speak about unworthiness being the last bastion before awakening. You know, not feeling like we are worthy of this. You know, by the way, our little ego really loves that kind of stuff, right? Humility and unworthiness. You know, but if we look very bottom line, fundamentally on what is the obstacle to awakening, it really is the identification with the body-mind. And that identification is so subconscious and so hidden, and so much of the time we are not even consciously aware of that. It's, you know, so I call it almost automatic. That we don't even realize it, and we also don't realize it that actually it's a habit, you know, it's a habit that has been here for a very, very long time. And like with any other habit, we have just gotten used to that. You know, with the identification with the body-mind comes the fear of death and dying. Because we believe ourselves to be something, the body-mind, that can and will die. You know, that's why many times in the moment of awakening, that fear of death arises. Because that fear of death really is the symptom of that identification. And so often that fear of death, or the fear in general, stops us. It stops us from allowing ourselves to fully be here, to see the reality that lies beyond that identification. You know, and that's why I speak about these so important, so essential elements of the nervous system, surrender and trust. You know, nervous system is the missing link to awakening. Means if there's too much going on the level of your physiology and the nervous system, if the nervous system is in constant aggravation because of the past, it's very, very challenging to just simply let yourself be present. You know, then when we don't understand that concept of surrender, because surrender, you know, is so powerful when we know that surrender means the mind merging in the heart, in our true nature. You know, when we don't understand the true surrender, you know, that causes a lot of challenge as well. We think it's about some external things and some things we can do externally to make that work, to make that happen. And most of all, though, we don't really fully know absolutely how to trust. And that trust is not just, you know, spiritual trust in truth, trust in the teaching, trust in the teacher, in the words of the teacher, but also trust in general, to be able to trust, to know the difference between what arises within, in your heart, and between the mind and the past. So these misunderstandings already are the obstacles to awakening. And in our program, we will be sitting with that, and we will be looking at this very closely to see if we can remove some of those misunderstandings. And also we'll be practicing together this very powerful meditation that Papaji spoke or did with us. Removing obstacles to awakening is called removing obstacles to awakening, looking at all the different ways we cling, we identify, we hold on to, we believe that something really belongs to us, including this body. Very, 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 very powerful. So I'm looking forward to our time together. Come and see me or see us in this November intensive. Come and visit all our social media, and if you are enjoying this video, please comment and share and subscribe. That really helps us, and it helps more people to be able to see this and benefit from this. And I'm very much looking forward to our time together.